Ladies and gentlemen, annually, me and one of my best friends, John Russo, probably wants to kill me at times, but I don't care. It's always
Not
mutual.
today.
It's like, not today, though. Always do an election recap. And today is no exception because we just went through the 2010 midterm election. So, John, say hi, everybody.
Hi everybody. Hi, Zennie.
Hey.
Nice to see you again.
Great to see you, too.
Hope you enjoyed last night's dinner.
I had a great time. Well, tell folks about that.
Last night's dinner is the Colombo Club, the largest Italian-American club west of the Mississippi, and about 3 times a year, a large group of us go with my sons to have sausage and peppers and generally make a commotion. So that's what we did last night.
And we made a commotion, definitely, yeah. Hey, what do you think about the outcome of the election with respect to the House and the Senate on the national level?
I don't think it's a big surprise. I'm certainly not panicked about it, as many of my colleagues in the Democratic Party are. I think if you look at midterm elections during difficult economic times, even charismatic presidents have had difficulty. A lot of people, I think, analogize this to Bill Clinton in our party and the problems he had in his first midterm election. That's a fair comparison. I think another comparison that is equally apt is the Reagan '82 election, where Reagan got hammered pretty hard due to a really bad economy that, frankly, he inherited from the prior administration. I think that's what we're looking at here. People back in late 81 and early 82 were saying so much for Reaganomics. It was very controversial, just as the healthcare initiative has been here. They started saying that, people like me started saying that Reagan should stop blaming Jimmy Carter for the state of the economy. And I think it's a very similar situation here. I actually do believe that the loss of the House by Obama is probably a terrific opportunity for him to be reelected in 2 years.
And the difference, though, is that we have a 9.6% unemployment rate then. With Clinton, it was just under 5%.
Well, Clinton's a different story. Clinton is a different.
And he lost both the House and the Senate.
He lost both the House and the Senate because and that's why I don't think that analogy quite holds up. I think the Reagan analogy, which, again, folks in my party hate anything that would compare Obama to Reagan because they're wrapped on the ideology issue. But if you look at the economic situation and the circumstances, I think that's a more apt analogy as to what happened. And as we all know, in 1984, Reagan trounced the vice presidential candidate on the Democratic ticket in 1980. And I think those of us who are looking to what might happen with the new relationship between the Tea Party and the Republican Party might consider whether or not the Republicans' vice presidential nominee in the last election will be their presidential nominee in 2012.
All right, picking up from our break, we were talking about the analogy between Obama, Clinton, and Reagan, which you, I think, despise, right?
I'm over it. I mean, I used to have nightmares about Reagan when I was a young man. I certainly think he was a very talented politician. I think he was a lot smarter than a lot of us gave him credit for. I also think he taught the American people that there actually was such a thing as a free lunch, that you could have all the government services you want without paying for it. But having said that, I think the analogy for Obama here is not Clinton in '94 with the Contract with America campaign and the so-called angry white man reaction to Clinton,
led by Newt Gingrich.
Right. I think this is much more analogous to the 1982 loss by Reagan of a number of seats in the House and in the Senate. Now, the interesting thing is that election and then the economy improving, and as you saw, yesterday's jobs report was fabulous, and the economy is improving. It's not where it should be, and it dropped a long way due to foolish, reckless policies by the prior administration.
Right.
But remember that back in 1981, late 81, early 82, people in my party, the Democrats, people like me, in fact, were saying that Reagan should stop blaming Jimmy Carter for the economy.
True.
Just as today Republicans are saying that Obama and his administration should stop blaming George Bush for the state of the economy. By 1984, the economy was certainly in resurgence, and Reagan benefited from that. It's likely to do the same in this case and benefit Obama in his reelection. And the final analogy that remains to be seen, whether it comes to fruition, is that Ronald Reagan trounced in 1984, the Democrats' presidential candidate, who had been the vice presidential candidate in the prior election.
Yeah.
And we may see that happen again with Ms. Palin, who is clearly running for president.
And do you actually believe that, okay, first of all, Palin's going to run and that Mitt Romney and Mike Huckabee, both of whom could not even get nominations within their own party, can beat President Obama?
I don't think President Obama will be beat next time. I'm here to tell you now, 2 years in advance, absent unforeseen circumstances,
Right.
war, terrorist attack, another cratering of the economy, which seems not likely at this point, but absent some unforeseen exogenous shock, the political scenario as it has developed with the loss of the House is a dramatic benefit, not to the Democratic Party, but it is a dramatic benefit to the president because he now has a foil in John Boehner. Who
Yeah,
is
great point.
less-
The 10 man.
Yeah, John Boehner, who I don't think is an evil guy, but is certainly not flexible, and unlike Newt Gingrich, who was cursed with an unfortunate
Boehner also may
name.
have a mistress problem.
Well, I'm not interested in that. If he does, he does. They all seem to have problems with that. You know, what I think with Boehner is that he makes a really good foil. He really heightens the, or really points out the difference between what Obama represents and what the traditional GOP represents. And Boehner's going to have real trouble with his Tea Party members. They're either going to have to disappoint the people who put them in office, or they're going to have to disappoint Boehner.
It's well stated because Rand Paul said he's going after Mitch McConnell.
Well, there you go. I mean, and likewise with when.
Well, and Rand Paul is really a wacky guy.
Well, yeah, yeah, Zen. When you look at Governor Palin, or former Governor Palin, I'm sorry, she didn't finish her term. When former governor,
Camera shake. It's true, she didn't. Quit her.
Yeah, when former Governor Palin decided to say that the Republican Party needed to conform to what the Tea Party wants, that they are actually the heart and soul of the Republican Party, that is a signal for a real split within that party coming up.
True.
And so let's see what that nomination is worth in 2012. In the longer run, I think it remains to be seen what the power of the Tea Party may be. I don't see it as a new thing. I know most people, and a lot of people on our side, a lot of the punditry from the Democratic side is all freaked out about the Tea Party. Let me tell
I'm
you
not.
what the Tea, no,
I think
let
it's
me tell you
great.
what the Tea Party
Makes
is.
money for me.
The Tea Party is the Angry White Male Rebellion in 1994, the Sagebrush Rebellion in 1978, the Prop 13 Rebellion of 1978. It goes all the way back to the Know-Nothing Party of the 1840s. And we laugh at that name, but it's a strain in American politics. And I would advise anyone who's watching this, because if you're watching this, you're already a political junkie if you're watching this. If you're watching this, go and read an essay written by a history professor called Richard Hofstadter.
Right.
Written in 1964 called, I think it's called The Paranoid Tendency in American Politics.
I never heard of him because he also wrote Anti-Intellectualism in American Life.
Correct.
Right.
And this is and that's a longer piece. And it's a great piece, Anti-Intellectualism essay. Paranoid Tendency or Paranoid Strain in American Politics is a fabulous essay, and after you've read that, you will see that there is nothing new about the Tea Party. It is a traditional element in American politics, and when people look at a guy like Glenn Beck, if they knew their history, not the history Glenn Beck is teaching, but if they knew their history, they would know that Glenn Beck also has precursors in people like Father Charles Coughlin, the so-called radical priest from Michigan in the 1930s. There are precursors for this. It is not the end of the world that the Tea Party exists. They have always existed in this country. They will always exist. We will always have to accommodate some of their concerns, or not. But they will always be a part of the dynamic. And this is not a new thing. It's not a growing thing. It's amazing to me how Democrats who use the Tea Party as a way to scare the base, to get the base up, have aggrandized the Tea Party by doing so.
Two things before we switch to Oakland politics. First of all, if you were advising the president, what would you tell him? And then, how long do you think the Tea Party will last?
The Tea Party will always be with us. It just will be called something else next time.
That's what I mean, though. It's transformed. Right.
It'll transform into some other name. You mean
Which
how
does
long will
imply
it,
a death,
how long
you know?
will it continue
Yeah.
under the name the Tea
Right.
Party?
I give
I
it
don't
2
know.
years.
Yeah, maybe 2, maybe 4, maybe 6. Not more than 6.
Yeah.
Maybe 6. It's not an organized. It's not an you know, it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember when we were kids, you know, you'd listen to the radio and it seemed like once a week they would say, you know, the Italian government has fallen, you know, and every 2 weeks it would be a new government in
Right.
Italy. It's all a disorganization. The Tea Party's kind of the same way as my folks over in Italy were back then. It's just disorganized. It's a collection of folks with a variety of grievances, some real, some imagined. But they've always been with us. They've always been here. They're a feature of American politics. And it's just a question of where they land and what they call themselves at this time.
What would you tell your advice for the president?
My advice for the president would be stay the course. I think the president...
Should he come out and be in swing? Should he
I think he should
give Mitch McConnell a verbal punch in the mouth?
No, I don't think he should give him any verbal punch in the mouth. I think he should continue with his agenda and let them reject it. I think he's on very solid ground when he says we're going to eliminate the Bush tax cut for those who are making more than $350,000. He really needs to press that and make sure it's defined as we're not even raising taxes on the rich. We're just stopping the tax break for the rich.
Right.
But we're continuing tax breaks for the middle class. How he formulates that message and what the actual words are, those people are a lot smarter than I am. But I think that's a winning argument, just looking at the numbers of who makes more than $350,000 and who makes less. I think he needs to continue to be a non-confrontational figure and allow the other side. They're going to polarize him whether he's confrontational or not confrontational. And then as far as the throwing red meat to the Democratic base. There are some people in the Democratic Party, you cannot make them happy. They're like our version of the Tea Party people. You cannot make them happy. This president...
Will we ever get it and become like the Borg one day? We all work as one?
Oh, of course not. We're human beings. Jeez, what, you want that? I don't want that. I'm part of the board. I'm an American. This party, the Democrats, has a large group that cannot be satisfied no matter what. And it is not because you're not checking the boxes on the political correct catechism.
Right.
It's psychological. They are drawn to politics because they are disenchanted in general, and they project their disenchantment into the party. Both parties have those kind of people. Those tend to be the more activist people.
Right.
And so
which maybe is the nature of activism.
Here you have a group of people who are dissatisfied with Obama, notwithstanding that since Harry Truman we have been trying to pass a universal health care bill.
Right.
He got it done in the face of vehement opposition, and he stood the course and he did it.
Right.
And they're complaining, well, he didn't have a public option. Well, too bad. This is America. A public option was probably not achievable. He did a financial reform bill. Needed one for years. Is it perfect? Of course it isn't. This is government. This isn't the academy where you can construct something that is perfect and airtight.
Right.
But this guy has gotten those things done, and yet they're not happy. And they're not happy because they're picking on issues that I agree with those folks. Things like the failure to close Guantanamo. Issues to do with torture. I agree. He backslid on those issues. He ought not have done that. I think the president was wrong with those issues. But overall, come on, the guy's done a great job.
But in their being unhappy, it means they don't write or blog about his successes, and so people don't hear about them.
Well, that's right.
That's my issue.
And you know, the White House says, well, you know, we don't do a very good job of selling the good things we're doing.
Like Democratic bloggers don't do a good job.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. The problem is Democrat bloggers live to be disappointed.
Right. That's
their feature in life.
Speaking of living in disappointment, since I know I'm on a clock with you.
Yeah.
Oakland politics. We have the election.
Yeah.
We have what appears to be a new mayor-elect in Don Parada.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, I think there's no question that Parada comes in with a 35% group of number one votes. Remember, here in Oakland, for
Right.
those of you who aren't in Oakland, we have ranked choice voting. So if no one gets 50%, we then look at the lowest candidates as they're eliminated, and we redistribute their second choices. So let's try this another way. The closest competitor to Parada is Kwan,
Right.
Jean Kwan, one of our council members.
I want you to listen to this, folks, because what John's about to say just underscores how remarkable Jean Kwan's vote pickup was under ranked choice voting, and how the gaming between Kaplan and Kwan to get those second and third choice votes really succeeded. Listen to this, because this happened before the ranked choice votes were counted later that day.
She's got 24% approximately of the vote to Parada's 35. For Jean to be elected, she must secure 3/4 of the number
right.
2 votes of the third and fourth candidates, Rebecca Kaplan, who came third, and Joe Tuman, who came fourth.
Right.
There is no scenario I can see that Jean can secure 3 out of 4 number 2 votes from those 2 candidates, and here's why. There is a scenario where she might be able to get 3 out of 4 out of Rebecca's group on ideological grounds, on the grounds that you're voting for another woman, etc. I don't think that happens, but that could happen. She'll never get 3 out of 4 of the Tuman votes, because the Tuman votes, and this is not a reflection on Joe, who I think is a really good guy, and I'd love to see him stay involved.
Yeah.
The Tuman voters are the local equivalent of the Tea Party. They're the local angry. They're the
That's a great
angry
point.
folks. They're the folks
That's
who
a
are
great
fed up.
point, yeah.
And by the way, I happen to share a lot of their feeling about being fed up with a lot of what goes on in this building. I can tell you.
Hey, they were led by Alan Michon, by the way.
Well, they were, and Alan is very fed up, and he has some valid reasons to be fed up. But those folks who voted for Joe are highly unlikely to vote for Jean, because she's an incumbent.
Right.
And because a lot of the actions that made them unhappy and led them to vote for Joe, are not going to have them vote for Jean, who was the finance chair. So I just can't see that she could get 3 out of 4 Tuman votes, and therefore I think Parada wins.
Yeah.
And I just don't
I
see
just can't
any
see
way
the
she can
percentage
draw that.
shares changing that much as you go down. I can't see Parada just not appearing and therefore not getting that threshold.
Well, he also, Don's a skilled campaigner. There were a lot of complaints about his performance in this campaign, but I think overall the campaign was a overwhelming campaign. It had TV ads and mail, and they did cleanups around in some of the more challenged
Well, and
neighborhoods.
plus, when they weren't doing that, they had other people talking about him. Bob Gammon produced 15,000 pieces of content, directly and indirectly, about him. I mean, so
Right, although they were negative.
Well, yeah, but still,
Okay.
you know what? You know the old saying.
Okay,
They're talking about you.
Yeah, well, they are, but I think also,
And it went over the top, and at a certain point, it backfired.
Okay, I'm not going to endorse one way or the other what media coverage was or was not appropriate. I mean, Bob has very strong opinions. I've been on the other end of his lash from time to time, and other times he's
Sexy.
quoted me.
Just kidding.
That was something
I could
would have
resist.
I would have never thought of that. But okay, I deserve it for using the term lash. Anyway, no, I think in Oakland, I think Don Parada is going to be our next mayor.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, whether it had been Don or Jean, I'm not as sure with Rebecca, but whether it was Don or Jean who became mayor, putting aside content of what they would do, how they will do it, will either of them, and I think it's going to be Don, will in the long run be salutary for the city government, because the problem with our city government has been that there's been a vacuum in the executive branch for 6 years
Right.
now.
We talked about that.
And-
I'm going to link to that video because that was a great.
Right.
That was a great one.
And as a consequence, Don, I think, and Gene would have done this too, Don is going to work, and going to have to work very hard in the first few months as mayor to pull back all the levers of. Don is going to have to pull the levers of power back into the mayor's office, but the people he will have to pull those levers of power back from are in many cases his allies. people like Jane Bruner, the city council president, who is the most powerful figure right now in City Hall, people like Ignacio de la Fuente, who's been an ally of Don's for many years. Don is going to have to figure out a way to work with them, and I'm sure he's a very skilled politician. I'm sure he'll figure out a way to do that. But ultimately, they will be required to cede executive authority that they have arrogated to themselves in the vacuum that we've experienced for the past 6 years. They are going to have to either cede that power to Don and work collaboratively with him, or that power, Don will figure out a way to take those levers back. And the charter certainly favors the mayor. The mayor is the executive.
Hey, speaking of council, what about Libby Schaff?
Libby Schaff's going to be a good council member, I think. She's
What advice do you have to her, because she's
certainly
new?
well prepared.
She's new.
I would
In that
just-
role, not
I
new to the
would just
city.
suggest to Libby, because she knows everybody in City Hall, that the work she's done in her campaign to really get to know her district, that she consider that campaign ongoing and not become captured by the hothouse atmosphere here in City Hall.
And since everybody asks me this when they see your videos, what's happening with the A's real quick?
Right now, we don't know what's happening with the A's. It seems like this is dragging on with Major League Baseball interminably. The decision on whether or not to pick San Jose or Oakland, as time goes on, I think that favors Oakland.
Is San Francisco going to sue San Jose?
I don't know. You'll have to ask San Francisco that question.
Great answer. Hey,
All
John,
right, gotta
thanks
go.
a lot.
Thanks.